Welcome back to Animal Songs, a story set to music, written and performed by Jamie Holcomb. Shadows are not to be overlooked. Consider your own. Consider the way that the light brings it out. As obvious as it all appears, my world keeps expanding in new, unexpected dimensions. Underneath appearances, the left hand extends its reach. Animism. Ostrich. And yet she persisted. Alone now with my compass, I spent hours staring at my hands, watching my nails grow, sharpen, and then I would retract the claws faster each time, snapping back to human. I watched the cells across my palms enlarge and harden, and I would flicker my skin between reptile and mammal. If I had known then how much I have since learned, I would have started my explorations with a simpler, more realistic animal. But this was what she wanted, what I wanted. I would control this. She would help me, I believed, as she had so far guided me, to regain what the wizard had stolen. I knew who I was now. And yet there was something missing. A sense of something unfinished or unknown lingered. My depiction of the compass loomed over my bed, its four rings mocking me with their withheld mystery. What was it all really about? My hours of communion with the black goddess, as I had taken to calling her, those conversations had led me to this point. I could fly, here across the city, though my movements seemed to be restricted to the night. And there, that place I saw when I closed my eyes. I knew so little then, though I felt like I had learned so much, as if I could read the wizard's compass. I didn't even know what time it was. Imagine now, if you will indulge me, that you have traveled across time, between worlds, through multiple transfigurations of a life that you believed you were living, which you determined, and you have been brought through dreams, past cities, from hazy memories to a moment where finally, once more, you feel like it is you who has the upper hand on life, when suddenly a person who you have never seen before knocks on your door and asks you, "Where's the rent check?" Evicted, disgraced, before the eyes of the city landlords, my name now listed in red in their secret registers, I was forced to take up a new residence at the end of the world, across the Gowanus at the bottom of Brooklyn, in a neighborhood called Sunset Park. The only place that would have me was a cockroach-infested building that rented rooms just big enough for a bed. I covered my mattress in whiteboard and plastic wrap, and I filled my trusty backpack with my books. With a yellow rubber duffel bag containing my 6 different outfits slung over my shoulder, I hauled my possessions downhill to take the A train south. Once I dragged my disgusting mattress up the new, brutal incline to my home, and then, panting, pulled my things up 2 flights of stairs to my cell, I was exhausted. She had been eerily silent throughout this endeavor, and my attempts to utilize my other form, which was possibly strong enough to make this ridiculous move more practical, those subtle transformations had only succeeded in puncturing the plastic wrap around the mattress. Bedbugs are real. I'd had to dig a roll of duct tape out of the duffel bag to patch over my mistakes, and I resigned myself to go through this experience as an ordinary, sullen boy. Now, with this physical ordeal over, I ripped open the plastic-wrapped shell and collapsed, like a shipwrecked hermit fleeing his island on a palm bark raft, flat on my back, floating on my wizard's compass. I dug my cell phone out of my pocket, and I called my mother. "Sonny, how are you?" "Miserable, I got evicted." "Oh no, well, do you? I already found a place, but I had to use all my money for the deposit." "Ah, so, disgrace, the price of admission into the wizard's realm." Looking back at yourself is inevitably a cringe-worthy experience. How many things would you have done differently? I'm acting like a child now, weeping because I wish that I'd never touched the stove. Let that burn mark be a reminder, Dragon. Should I have told my mother everything? How could I have even started the story? Once upon a time, I ran away from the world, went mad at sea, was tricked by a power I could not conceive, and proceeded to repeat this process 3 times over. It was Florence who called me. She needed my help, and the key of C. "I'm putting on a play. I think it would be good for the music. Letters representing sounds, representing feelings." "That's the idea." "Listen, I'd like to, but I think you'd better find somebody else. It's New York City. I hear there are good musicians wandering the streets." "Yeah, I think you would be good." Florence lived in Queens, an almost 2-hour subway ride from my new tower, but the in train ran the full distance, no transfer required. Once more I shouldered my trusty backpack of books and set out into the world. I took my seat on the blue bench at the end of the car, beside the metal door, the homeless man's corner, where honest New Yorkers fear to tread. Feeling the cold plastic seep through the threads of my jeans, I wondered about the possibility of transfiguring bacteria. Would I be able to cure diseases? I saw myself as a man, a king witch in black armor, seated on a silver throne, my gauntleted hand raised before a line of infirm peasants. Let me take away your pain. I bent over my bag and dug through the volumes, searching for a text on microorganisms as the train chugged through the tunnels. I thumbed over my various hardcovers and thought errantly about the tiny world beneath our own. Microscopic specks danced at every conceivable level downward. In a sort of flat land, walled cells battled and organized and were consumed by juicy predators, phagous amoebas, and ring-tailed protozoa. Farther within, space twisted, and whirling solar systems of invisible dots traded amorphous electrons, exploded and conjoined like spinning partners in a cosmic quadrille. Down farther, in the secret realm beyond measure, clouds of time-transcending quanta flashed in and out of existence. I am far from an expert in any of these realms. What I wish to express to you now is that sitting there, then, that day I was summoned back to Florence, dreaming of where the wizard's power might take me, I saw all this. In a series of instants, I was at each of these levels, taking part in their world-generating wars and festivals. I did not fully understand then what I was doing. Only gradually did I become aware that the train should have surfaced at some point. We should have been rocking across the Brooklyn Bridge, saluting Lady Liberty. Why was it so dark? A flame ignited before me. My breath caught in my throat as I expected that row of fangs to open above the fire. Instead, a stern male face appeared. He had a short brown beard and a bald, tonsured head, crowned with graying temples. This monk, for I could see his brown robes, frowned at me and exclaimed, "How did you get in here?" I was now seated at an ancient oak table. Turning my head, I saw that I was surrounded by bookshelves. The room smelled of wet stone. I could see above me the craggy cave ceiling. I said, "I couldn't tell you." He held his sharp gaze, and his eyes wandered from my face to my hood to the book in my hand, a text on Chinese medicine. Slowly, his angry eyes widened. He dipped a candle closer to the book and stumbled around the table to read over my shoulder. The page I had open was a description of the integrated view of organ systems. The specific example outlined in the paragraph beside which I held my thumb and index fingers as a hook around the text, there written was a discussion of the relationship between the blood and the vein. The pressure created by the fluid against the walls of the tube, the author argued, was precisely the point of the system. That blood pressure was the result of the two separate entities, blood and vein. Neither could function without the other. Like this, the body worked. The separate pieces were about the ethereal forces between them. I watched the monk read, and his mouth worked, silently forming the sounds he deciphered, so that little puffs of sour sausage filled the air, which was already redolent with the scent of slick limestone. It was a deep, fatherly smell. Eventually, the fellow bent over the book and turned the page. I had to break the silence. "Do you know the wizard?" The stranger lifted the Chinese medicine book, closed the orange covers, and rotated the volume in the candlelight, inspecting the spine and the title on the front, Zhang Fu Organ Systems. "Where did you come from?" he said, and reverently, with both hands, he set the book down on the ancient table. "New York. I was on the subway." He stared at me, face blank, and then he started laughing. "You'll have to explain to me where that is in relation." "The subway?" The catacombs. Is there..." He snatched up his candelabra from the table and waved it towards the shelves, casting light on the dark corners. "Where's the hole, then?" he said. "And where in blazes is New York? Or Old York, for that matter?" All I could say was that it's an island off the coast of New York State. I honestly can't explain how I ended up here. "Do you know the wizard? Are we near the forest?" "Listen," said the monk, "I would ask you to leave, but you've got my curiosity. There's a wizard?" "Yes, I take it we're in the other realm." "There are realms?" He took a step back from me to fall against the bookshelves. He held the candelabra out in front of himself defensively. "What exactly are you?" Lost for words, as they were clearly getting me nowhere, I dug through my backpack, faithfully curled against my leg, and produced my composition notebook. I flipped it open to my clearest rendition of the compass. I flipped it open to my clearest rendition of the compass. This is the best I can explain. Somehow this thing brought me here, reading it. Brother Daly took a step towards the notebook I held open before him, candelabra extended. The jagged drawing danced in the flickering light. I watched his hazel eyes mist as he slowly raised his left palm to cover his gaping mouth. In the bay of the eponymous city, a tiny rowboat drifted to the short brick seawall. The gentle waves rocked the craft clattering against the stone. back and forth until a particularly rough nudge and resounding woodclap roused the sleeping passengers. The 9 crew members of the SS Enterprise jolted at once. Every one of them had been scorched lobster pink, and they were bleary-eyed and delirious. Pinocchio Warshaw reached out first to touch his home soil. He worked his fingers into the disintegrating mortar between the bricks of the wall and blindly called to the sky, "Help us!" It so happened, who's to say how these things are done, that walking beside the bay this morning was a stout old gentleman. He wore breeches of flimsy hog leather and a traditional Pierrot tunic, a 3-button shirt of undyed cotton. Atop his head was situated a coarse black cap, a conic shape common in this part of the world. He pushed the hat back with one square palm to scratch his bald head beneath, and with the other hand he tugged at his sagging gray mustaches. "The dock's just down there," said the old man, and he extended his head-scratching hand to the left. Enormous sailing ships flocked together several yards deeper into the bay. "We can go no farther," said Pinocchio. "Please, help us." "Oh, this is all wrong," said the old man. Reluctantly, he squatted and extended his arm to Pinocchio. Once he'd pulled the scholar atop the bricks, together, the 2 Pierrot Bay natives helped to shore Ruby, Crystal, Frida, as custom dictated the gentleman. The children and Peter, Violet, and Frederick Hump, particularly exhausted, his shoulders riddled with visible knots. The crew huddled together on the edge of the wall, calling out their thanks, though of course the old man could not understand their foreign language. "We need water," said Pinocchio. "The cantina is just over there. Please help us." "Oh," the old man shook his head and tugged at his mustaches. Finally he turned around and stomped to the orange stucco building behind them, muttering to himself, "Oh, this is all wrong." He pushed through the swinging door. In a moment he returned hugging 2 buckets of water. A silver ladle floated in each sloshing pool. The old man set these vessels down before the disheveled crew, who immediately snatched at the ladles and proceeded to drain the buckets. "Those were 40 cents each," said the old man. "We have no money." "Oh." He grumbled, turned, and stomped off a few paces before he stomped back to the crew. "You had better repay me. 80 cents is practically $1. "Since when does Pierrot Bay charge for water?" said Pinocchio. The old man waved away this question with an irritated hand roll. "I need help with my hogs. There is enough of you here for 7 sturdy young people, 10 cents an hour. 1 hour, and I won't even charge you the last dime you owe me. We need to reach the shrine of Crispin. We have business, and we can't waste time." "Son," said the old man, and he bent down close to Pinocchio, "you've already stolen my time and money. You owe me an hour's work, each of you." Pinocchio explained to the crew, "This man is hardly a saint. He is asking that we work for the water he procured. As we have no other means of repayment, perhaps to consent is our, how you say, best bet." "What'll we do about the boat?" Mr. Hump said, and he pointed to their little craft still rocking against the sea wall. Together the crew hauled the SS Enterprise atop the wall, and they laid her to rest upside down on her gunnels. Then they followed the man up the hill towards his home. Pierrot Bay is an ancient city. As we discussed, her history transcends the memory of man, as if out of a murky swamp these ruins erupted. The streets are hard-packed dirt, trampled by generations of sandals and hooves, boots and horseshoes, so the dusty lanes have become like stone. Orange stucco buildings surround these paths, every house the same style of rounded cube, with deep red tiles ridged like scales across their tops. Peppered among these structures are glorious sandstone palaces and temples. There are many sites to commemorate throughout the city, and there are many wealthy nobles with ancestry stretching back into the darkness of mythology. All this, essentially, Pinocchio Warshaw described to his crew as they clattered up the hard dirt lane. Old black-clad women pointed at the travelers and whispered to each other as they folded their sheets over clotheslines or swept their red tile porches. The crew of the Enterprise cleverly kept Violet at the center of their pack, while Crystal, starling in her arms, smiled and waved to the citizens on their right, and Ruby, with Todd, did likewise on the left, and the Humps walked shoulder to shoulder behind, Frederick offering sober head nods to the Pierrot men loading their ox carts with wine barrels, while Frida pointed at the ladies and mimicked their gossip. Peter, shielding Violet from the front, walked just behind Warshaw, and was the chief recipient of his recitation of the origin of Pierrot Bay, the legend of Crispin, which he had already detailed several times while they were at sea. "But now we can really see where it all happened," said Peter. Warshaw grinned and tousled Peter's hair. "You're a good boy." As the scholar spoke these words, the old man guided the crew around a corner onto a lane Pinocchio recognized well. Weeping cypress trees greeted him on either side, much older but the same plants that he had passed every day on his way home from school. He'd never thought much of them before, but now they greeted him as friends. Already he saw the cross street where he would turn to go home, and he felt a flicker of dread. And farther down the road he saw smoke, said the old man. A great black billow clouded the horizon. The shrine, said Pinocchio in his native tongue. What's up there, said Peter, pointing innocently to the ominous cloud. A volcano? As the smoke drifted closer, the smell of ash filled the air. People emerged from the buildings along the road. A clamor rose among them. It is the shrine, Warshaw said to the group. How can this be? Then in Puro to the old man, he said, You've got to be kidding me. A bell resounded, followed by clattering hooves. A shout rang out, Move, move! The crew, alarmed by the noise, all turned to see a carriage drawn by galloping bay horses charging down the road. They jumped back as the carriage ran past. It was a roofless, rectangular car filled with stout men in black coats, together shouldering a bronze-nosed hose. The back of the car was lined with wooden barrels, and in the middle, a kind of pigtail on the carriage, there swung a metal hand crank. What's going on? Crystal said. Starla clutched her mother and buried her head in her breast. They are the fire brigade, madam. There is a fire. Yeah, I can smell it, Warshaw. I mean, what should we do? Pinocchio glanced to the old man, who sighed and hobbled past the crew, down the road to turn back around the corner. It would be most wise to vacate the area, said Warshaw. He led the crew, quickly, back down the lane to the bay. Like that, the train emerged from the tunnel into the blue sky, to click across the bridge into Queens. I blinked in the sunlight, the copy of Zhang Fu organ system still open before me. I saw on the page that a tear blotted the word blood. Then another drop fell, and I realized that I was sobbing. Silently, I wiped my eyes, and I dared not look around at my fellow passengers, although in New York City, nobody pays much attention to people crying in the corner of the train car. It is a daily occurrence. It wasn't until I exited onto the platform that I let my mind work over the experience. It was possible to move between spaces. The wizard had transformed time, and just as easily he had moved me from his hidden shore across the ocean, across who knows how many planes and dimensions, to return me to that library in Boston. Twice I had mimicked this skill, to some degree, first with my foot in my mouth to rediscover the trickster's secret lodgings, and just now to find some other place. Why and how? I descended the rusty iron steps of the platform to touch down on the concrete floor of the red mat of the street, contemplating the gum stains as I remembered the monk's misting hazel eyes. Above me the train clanked, and its shadow on the street shimmered the blue sky red walls. The wooden wizard's compass spun before me. I turned past the neon sign flashing the word coffee in the window of a bodega. I saw the gasping monk back away from me, defensively raising his candelabra. Orange firelight, sunlight flooded my face as I emerged from the shadow of the train tracks. I kept my head down, eyes on the passing concrete squares and their infinity of globular gum stains, as I tried to understand what had happened and errantly considered how often an individual gum chewer must spit out his flavor-depleted wad onto the sidewalk to create the pattern I now observed. I was walking to Florence's apartment, past fluttering green and white-striped awnings hanging over bins of oranges and apples displayed before the grocers, past old Greek Astoria women in their black frocks, brooms in hand, hooked noses aloft as they swept the streets before their glass-windowed salons and scowled at the million pedestrians. How many passers-by had marred these streets with their black cud? If every citizen chewed just one stick of gum a week, how many people in New York times how many sticks of gum times how many trips to this stop in Queens would create this vista, the endless expanse of Dalmatian hills now spread before my gigantic feet, squashing and molding and dyeing the once green and white globs into the black mounds that characterized this episode of City Sidewalk. The compass turned. I was an anteater. I was a pair of enormous white Adidas traversing the plains of Trident. I turned the corner where Astoria Boulevard became a numbered street bordered by yellow towers of disintegrating stone. The address Florence had given me was stamped in gold numbers on the glass door of the apartment building on the corner. On the wall there hung a beige box with a slatted face and a button mouth. A digital screen served as the thing's eyes, and it saw rows of dots describing numbers, apartment names as I interpreted the robot's language. I pushed the thing's silver arrow eyelash to reveal the number 3, and then I tapped its lips. Her voice buzzed from the box. "Who is it?" "Robbers," I said. The cave walls still flickered around me, but that was just a memory or a dream, I thought. I rubbed my eyes to remove the orange light that so brightly surrounded me. It was a surprisingly hot day for December. I heard the scrabble of locks and the slam of a heavy door, and then through the glass I saw Florence, in a purple dress and brown leather jacket. She was laughing as she bent through the frame of the interior door that led to the yellow tile vestibule. When she opened the second glass and saw me, her face changed. "What a long nose you have," she said. "What a long nose you have," she said. "Is that like a... what is that?" I reached a hand to my face, but before my palm got anywhere near it, I felt the rubbery tube. Looking down, I saw a brown trunk dangling in front of me. I began to speak. But my jaw wasn't moving. The trunk was opening, and now I could feel the interior of the tube, and within it, my elongated, slimy tongue. One glance at Florence's wide eyes directed my gaze to the glass door where I could see my translucent reflection. I'm an anteater. I felt my snout with both hands, rubbing the downy fur, feeling my fingertips through my thickened, endless lips. That definitely seems... And on this word, my tongue slurped and my voice gurgled. Seems to be the situation. "How are you doing that?" She stepped back to consider the end of the trunk from which my voice projected. "I could not tell you." "Whoa, this is like some Jim Henson level work. How do you move the lips?" "I just speak." Florence, her eyes open wide to consider the spectacle, opened her mouth and let it gape as she laughed one single exhalation. I hung my head and rubbed my snout. Together we stayed that way for a long time. "Well, come in, I guess." She led me down the hall, a yellow tile walkway the same shade as the exterior edifice of crumbling stone. I glanced between her billowing skirt and long legs and my own scattered images of the red room, compass, and cave library, trying to put together some sort of explanation for the present reality. I couldn't stop rubbing the snout. At least her roommate was gone. Florence's apartment was on the ground level. It is a magical experience for a young man to enter a girl's apartment. Everything inside is beautiful, bright, clean. She led me to a small tea sofa against the cream-colored wall, where she had hung pictures, memories from her life, her friends and herself in Halloween wigs, photos from ballet recitals. I saw her as a little girl in a black leotard learning to dance. I saw nothing else for an instant, no compass, no cave, not even the prodigious snout hanging before me. Florence. "Would you like a drink? Can you drink?" "I don't know," I said, "but any alcohol would be welcome." I eased onto the sofa, and possibly because of my distended nose or simply because of natural boyish feelings, I became embarrassingly aware of my masculine odor. She returned from the kitchen, behind the wall across from where I sat, bearing 2 stemmed glasses of red wine. We clinked cups, and then she sat in a green rocking chair against the wall opposite me. She marveled at my face and shook her head. "So is that thing for real or what?" She took a sip from her glass. I raised mine, my fingers wrapped around the circular bottom, and I manipulated my trunk to dip it into the liquid. I crossed my eyes to watch as my long tongue emerged, and I proceeded to lap up the wine. After a few sips, I looked up at Florence. Her mouth was hanging open again. She exhaled the same single laugh. "Seriously, what's going on?" I could not tell you, but I tried. Eyes wide and deep purple, long lashes batting as she took in the sight of my anteater snout narrating my tale. Florence rocked her chartreuse rocking chair, long legs crossed, head nodding with the rhythm of her seat, lips trembling, smiling, laughing, shaking her head in amazement. As to the nose, I concluded, my best guess is that I was just, connecting the dots. The compass turned. I saw the next ring, those speckled constellations second to the outermost layer, illuminated blindingly. The whole ring flashed like gold. The light receded, and before me hung the compass, the constellation ring now charred. It was not destroyed, I understood implicitly, but it had been strengthened, like a piece of glazed pottery, an ancient black figure vase. "I think I just figured something out," I said. "Your nose." Florence was no longer rocking. She had both feet on the ground, and her look of shock had lost its tinge of amusement. "I saw," she said, and she pointed at my face. I reached up, expecting to meet that rubbery trunk. Instead, I slapped myself on my very human, fragile cartilage protrusion. Florence leapt out of her seat. I don't believe, she said, followed by the word holy, and then every imaginable expletive, and finally, shit. She paced the hardwood planks, letting her feet thud thoughtlessly as she reckoned. I could tell by the look in her eyes, with the facts that she was piecing together in her head. After a few minutes of inspired pacing, she stopped and said, "Oh, I get it, like ants." That day, I shared my compass with Florence, and it was enthusiastically received. Maybe she needed to witness the transformation to believe me, or maybe, for whatever reason, who's to say why, I pulled my composition notebook from my bag, and together we read the meaning of the anteater. Why not tell you plainly? You've come with me so far. Each ring of the compass is associated with a particular kind of understanding or worldview. That's about as clear as I can make it, even now, all the way out here. Once the initiate transcends this type of perception, the animal of that inclination, the beast who interacts with life in that way, most like the budding Nagual's course, in the mode of the second to outermost ring, that form becomes available. For me, the meaning of the third ring was the point of view of an anteater. For you, it will be different. Now, together, Florence and I contemplated the dragon, the meaning of that other place, the possibility of my time displacement compared with the likelihood of powerful dreams projecting into reality. I kept two things from her. The first was the Persian hymnal, still sitting in my bag between the larger volumes. When I reached my hand into the backpack, or when I reached those points in the story involving that text, I felt a weakness, a desire for secrecy. I understand it now, though as you will see, I cannot explain it directly. The Persian mysteries I withheld from Florence. The second secret I kept was more troubling. I did not tell her about the whispering woman in my head, that feigned goddess of the flickering flame. I spent all day with Florence, talking about my past, her plans for the future, her play. All the while, I heard the distant hiss. She was listening, and she was not pleased. This has been Animal Songs, written and performed by Jamie Holcomb, produced by Supermoon. Find us on TikTok, YouTube, or at our website, gosupermoon.com. That's GOSUPERMOON.com. You can also find our work alongside many other talented artists at looksees.com. That's LOOK-SEES.com. This concludes the Ostrich chapter. I wonder what spirit we will meet next. Until then, thank you for listening.